Hello, welcome back to our Object Relations lecture series. Today I'm going to be speaking to you about the difference between guilt and persecutory anxiety. Often there can be a confusion between the two, and people will talk just colloquially about feeling guilty when they're actually experiencing an inner and an internal world sense of terror about retaliation from an internal object, and they're actually caught up in persecutory anxiety. We can look at this from various perspectives. One way is through Melanie Klein's theory of the paranoid schizoid and depressive position. In the depressive position, one experiences guilt as an awareness of another and a grief about hurting the one loves. One feels that one has done something that one honestly regrets, as in my book, The Anatomy of Regret, From Death Instinct to Reparation and Symbolization in Vivid Case Studies, published in 2013 by Carnac in London. I go deeply into the whole idea of heartfelt regret and grief and the loss of that and the mourning process of that. But people can confuse a fear of feeling guilty about something as opposed to a terror of retaliation from an internal object. And the paranoid schizoid position, as opposed to the depressive position in Kleinian theory, is where we experience this persecutory anxiety as very prominent. And we move forward into the depressive position where we can be aware that there's another. We get whole objects, we get a subjective sense of self, so we can imagine another having hurt feelings and having the subjectivity of their experience, so we then can feel responsible for hurting them. That's guilt. But we don't have to achieve the depressive position and just stay there. We always go back and forth, the paranoid schizoid depressive position, and we certainly can experience persecutory anxiety even if we've achieved the depressive position achievements of whole objects, awareness of a subjective sense of ourselves and a subjective sense of the other. One example of a clinical example of someone where it made a very big difference to when she realized that what was holding her back in her blocks to her creative work, her blocks to her writing, had more to do with persecutory anxiety than guilt. This made a critical difference for her. Now, we had already done long analysis where we dealt with trauma and early primal abandonment trauma that affected her blocking. But once we worked through all that, we got to a place where she had much more conscious choice over whether she opened her mind to thinking and writing or whether she stopped herself. And at that point, it became very critical to talk about the difference between what she was calling guilt for a long time, about that a guilt towards her mother that would make her hold herself back because she would feel that her mother didn't have the life she had. Her mother died before her creative process reached fruition and had a death from illness and at middle age. She always thought she was feeling guilty that she would go on with her creativity and open up her inner world to really productive creative writing, which she's now done and published and getting awards for and winning contests for it. She is now moved forward from not being so paralyzed she couldn't even write to or think to doing productive work, ongoing as well as editing. But she was thinking when she would stop her mind that it was because of guilt that she had towards her mother. When she realized that the deeper fear, although she did have feelings about hurting her mother's feelings, but the deeper thing was the terror of her mother in her mind meeting her after she died in heaven and um, chastising her with a lot of recriminations for her going beyond her mother in creative work and achievement. She realized that it wasn't just about guilt towards her mother, it was a fear of a retaliatory attack, and that she actually anticipated this retaliatory attack, was already persecuting herself and attacking herself with negative views of herself from the past. That was her way of already punishing herself in identification with her mother as an internal object, persecuting her and retaliating against her. When she realized this, it opened up so much freedom of choice for her to go forward with thinking and creating and writing and not stopping her mind unconsciously in this automatic way. So the discovery that it wasn't guilt, but it was persecutory anxiety, a terror of her mother as an internal object projected onto her future after death, that was what was terrifying her and freezing her thinking, making her stop herself, was very critical. It was not just a fear that she would hurt her mother, but that her mother would be this, in part, this very threatening, persecutory witch part of the mother, as opposed to the more benign part of the mother that would want her to do well in her life, no matter what. There was also this split off witch mother that would retaliate and would terrorize her and make her fear retaliation if she were to be free to express herself in her therapeutic sessions and in her written work. At this point, as this woman has gained more and more and more understanding about what causes automatic stopping of her thinking and writing, she has gotten to a point where she's so in charge and has so much choice that she was able to terminate a long-term analysis in a very, very fruition, a way that was very full of love and life and gratitude and self-confidence that she never had before. So this is one example of how people can think of guilt when they're really caught up in the terrors of persecutory anxiety. And it can be very important for the clinician working with a patient who's caught up in that way of thinking to differentiate from them and help them understand what the fantasies are of retaliation, usually from an internal other from primal development, but it could also be displaced onto many others in their lives, often going back to the primal parents, and in this case, the primal mother in the internal world. So thank you for listening today, and I've enjoyed sharing this differentiation between persecutory anxiety and guilt. Till the next time, take care and enjoy all of the YouTube videos with different explanations. Bye for now.